Sousa here with lindasousa.com, enjoying the journey. And today I'm making a fruit stuffed roast pork. I want to give you a little bit of background on this very quickly before I get into it, but I actually have this recipe on a site called zialinda.com. It was for a cookbook that I made in honor of my parents, to honor the legacy of my mom and dad, Maria and Dominic Ulysses. And it's the cookbook that I wrote is called Made with Love, a Tribute to My Parents. And the stuffed roast pork, which I've made a number of times for a number of different gatherings, and it's probably one of the most requested recipes that people ask me for and that I have given out to people, was inspired actually by a recipe of my dad's called Porchetta. And if you're Italian, you know what porchetta is, and it's just pork, really. But it's pork with the fat around the outside, and so when it's cooked, and the way we make it in my family, and different families make it a different way, but it is so succulent and juicy, and it is just so delicious, and it's very simply made. And that actually I have right here, because after I'm done doing the fruit stuffed pork, I am going to do a porchetta, and that I'm going to freeze. I'm going to wrap it up really well, and I'm going to freeze. And just very quickly, what goes into the porchetta? Well, it's real simple. It's salt, pepper, and garlic powder, or garlic salt. That's what my dad used to put in it. That's it. Nothing more, nothing else. It was just so simple, and that's just the way he did it. He lathered the inside with the seasonings, wrapped it all up, kind of rubbed it down, put it in the oven, and it cooked and cooked and cooked. And the fat would drip into the pork, and that's what made it so tender and succulent and juicy. Really absolutely delicious. A nice big Italian salad, the porchetta, done deal, fabulous meal. So the pork loin is one of two things. I often stuff a pork loin with spinach, do like a spinach stuffing, sometimes spinach with feta. But then I love, pork with applesauce. And so years ago I thought, what if I put the apples in the pork? And I thought, why stop at apples? We have so many wonderful fruits that I can add, and maybe do like a little herb rub. And so that's kind of how the recipe evolved. I did it. I did a couple of cooking classes, and I shared it, and people seem to love it, and it really is a delicious dish, and it looks great. So if you want some stills and you want to see the actual recipe, you can go on to Zia Linda. I will be putting it on my Linda Sousa website as well, but for now it sits out at zialinda.com, which is the Made with Love, a Tribute to My Parents. So let's get into making this pork. So this is about a 9.5 pound pork loin, simple pork loin. One of my little tips, obviously when you're working with a piece of meat that's this big, I'm very fanatical about making sure my hands are clean, and I keep my hands clean during cooking because I don't want any cross-contamination. And I'm especially careful when I'm working with chicken and with pork, with poultry and with pork. And so what I do is, my handy dandy, I love that plastic wrap. Put it down on the counter, put it all here, so that way clean up is much easier. I'm still going to scrub it down and clean everything up, but it just makes it so much easier. And I don't have a cutting board that's big enough to put this on, but even if I had a cutting board under this, which I actually could go get my dad's pasta board if I wanted to put that out here and do all of that on top of that, I would still be covering that pasta board with the saran wrap, because I just don't want any of the juices or anything from the pork to get into that wood that I make my ravioli and my pasta and my bread on. And the cookies, the Italian cookies. So what am I going to do? I'm going to have a 9.5 pound pork loin. Well, you can do the whole thing. You could cut it in half if you are feeding a smaller group. You could actually cut it in thirds, and you can use some of this to do, pork chops and do different things with. There's a number of different things that you can do. For our purposes today, though, I'm actually going to fillet the whole thing, and I'm going to show you how I fillet. Now, you can do it in a number of different ways. You can fillet by slicing it halfway and then just opening it up, slicing it down the middle. But there's a particular way that I like to fillet, and sometimes I do this with the chicken as well, with a nice big chicken breast. So what I'm going to do, I turned it over, and so the fat side is down. I'm going to cut right down the middle, but I'm going to make sure that I don't go too far so that I'm not cutting through the meat. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to start light, and I'm just going to give a quick little incision right here, but I just want to make sure I don't go too deep. And you see I'm following my hand with the knife, or I'm following the knife with my hand. And I'm going to open it up just a little more. So I made a tiny incision, and now I just want to open it up a little more, and I want to be careful not to cut too deep. This is probably the most involved part of the recipe. Everything else is really pretty simple. It looks like it's a lot of work, and it is a little labor intensive, but you know, it's not that bad. I think it looks harder than it is. Now I'm going down a little more. Again, I don't want to get to the bottom. I don't want to get to that fat, but I want to open this little puppy up. So here we go. So now I've cut down the middle. I want to start to fillet it now. So what am I doing? So if I put it back together, it's going to go like that, right? I want to cut almost in this way because I'm going to keep doing that to make it come out. So see, and I don't know, I'm filming alone today, so you can't really, I can't get you in any closer, but hopefully you see what I'm doing. So now I'm going in this way, and I'm cutting on this side. And as I do that, it's freeing this piece of the pork to open up. I'm kind of almost, and these little cuts in here are only going to tenderize it and make it even better. See, I'm cutting this open a little more. So do you see that now? This side is kind of open. And I'm going to move this down a little bit here. And I'm going to go back, do the same thing on this one. I'm just opening it up because I essentially want to have an almost flat piece of pork. Now, my dad used to wrap the porchetta with string. And I do typically wrap the porchetta with string still. That hasn't changed. But for the pork, I used to do with string. Now I use skewers to put it together. Makes it so much easier, and then at the end I can just pull them out. Everything just stays together so nicely. You'll see it. So, okay, so I've opened that up, and you can see I've kind of gotten in a little bit to the fat here because of there's a membrane that goes right there. But that's okay. Then I'm going to open it just a little more. Not too much more, but I want to kind of flatten it out just a bit. So I'm going to just do that on this side. And that's going to keep it from tightening up. There we go. So that side is done, right? So now, if I wanted to, I could roll the whole thing back up, and I'm going to kind of do that so I can turn it around. And then I'll let you see that. There we go. So that side's opened. And now I'm going to do this side. It might be easier now for you to see. And I'm going in this way. And obviously be careful. You don't want to cut your hands. Sharp fillet knife is important. There we go. And I just always kind of go back over it just because I want to make sure that I got in there and I got the area I want. So there we go. We open that up now. And now let's do another one. Here we go. This is fun. I enjoy doing this. I love the end result. And it really does taste so good. I had a friend who I made this once, and he was helping in the kitchen. I was doing it at a retreat house. And he said, you know, I really didn't think I was going to like this because with all the fruit, he said, but it's actually really delicious. And it really is. It's a wonderful, it's a change, something a little different. And it's so pretty and makes such a nice presentation. I'm opening that up because I want to flatten it out. Well, there you go, my friends. That, more or less, is our pork loin. You see how nice and flat that is? See? So we'll put it back over. I am going to now, there we go. Now I want to flatten that out over here just a touch more. Just give it a little bit to open up. There we go. So this is going to get seasoned now. I'm going to season it really well with some salt and pepper and I'm going to actually make a kind of a little paste with some herbs, some fresh garlic, a touch of olive oil. I'm going to do it in my my blender or my Cuisinart and my food processor. Lost the name for a minute there. And so I'm going to do it in the food processor. I'm going to pulse it up a bit. I'm going to use a little bit of fresh parsley. I love to use the marjoram and the tarragon. The marjoram is kind of like an oregano, and the tarragon has like a licoricey, peppery taste. And I really love those two herbs mixed with my thyme and my rosemary. So I'm going to take a little bit of that, put that all in there, pulse that up, and then I'm going to spread that. Oh, after I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to do the salt, the pepper, and then I will put the little herb rub on top of that. And then we're going to saute our fruits that are going to be going in the center, and then we'll put it all together. So I'll show you, we'll be back, I'll show you the different stages of how we go through this and how I make my fruit stuffed pork. So we'll be back soon. We have what we're going to be putting here into our food processor. So, and there's not a lot, but there's a little bit of parsley, a touch of this wonderful tarragon. Like I said, it's a little licoricey, and it's got that licorice and peppery flavor, which just smells amazing. But I don't want to overpower this with that, so I don't have that much. I have a little bit of that. Have a little bit of marjoram. It's kind of like a little bit of an oregano. A fair amount of rosemary and some thyme. I decided to add a couple of one shallot that I just quartered, and then 3 cloves of garlic. I'm going to take all of this. Okay, I've got my little food processor here, and I'm putting this all in there. And I'm going to whip that up. Make sure that's on. And put a little bit of that to get it started. Just pulse that up a bit. And just get it to emulsify just a little. Not too much, but I do want a little bit of oil in there. Okay, that's good. All done. Let's take that out. Oh, this smells wonderful. You can, well, of course you can't smell this. If you could only smell it, it smells fabulous. Look at that. It's great. That's going to go in here once I dress it up. So this is a whole, a whole 9.5 pound loin. And and I'm not really planning on cooking the whole thing. I'm thinking I might just cut it in half, do half, and then do the other half maybe with some spinach. I don't know. I'm going to think about that. But right now I'm going to season it, because either way I'm going to be putting the herb rub in it. So let me get some of my sea salt and some pepper and just a touch of garlic powder. So just put that right on there. And this is coarsely ground black pepper. I don't want to overdo. I'm not a big pepper girl, so overdoing it for me wouldn't be that great, although we do put a lot of pepper in the porchetta. And then here's some sea salt, because we definitely need to season this. All these flavors are going to marry, so don't be thinking, oh my goodness, she's putting herbs and then she's going to put fruit. How is that going to taste? It's going to taste wonderful. It actually tastes fabulous. So don't worry about that, because it all comes together really very, very nicely. So now that's all set. We're all in here. I think I'm going with the whole thing. I think we're just going to go with the whole thing. Now I'm going to have to make some more of this, because it doesn't look like I've made enough to do the outside. And I am going to rub this with some herbs on the outside. So you could double this, and then you'd have what you need for the outside layer. I don't want this to overpower, but I want it to flavor. So that's why we're just giving it a nice light coating. Oh my goodness, it just smells wonderful. These fresh herbs, you know, it's going to sink right into that meat. Got a little heavy on this side and not so much on this one. Oh my goodness. That's just beautiful. I want to spread that around a bit. All right, see if we can get that there. Okay, so now we're ready to do the fruit. And get that fruit all ready. So I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to go prepare the fruit, and really all I'm going to do is slice up, we'll peel and slice some apples, some fresh pears. Sometimes I use peaches, but they didn't have any at the market, so I'm not putting any in. I do put a little orange juice actually, when you'll see when I go to assemble it, how I do that. And what I actually end up doing with this is making it this way and then freezing half of it, and then I'll cook half of it, so you'll see what it comes out like. So we'll be back. I'm going to clean up and we'll get ready for, and I'll show you how I put together the fruit for the stuffing. So I'm getting ready now to make my stuffing for the pork. And what I cut up in here is 2 Cortland apples. I've just peeled them, cored them, sliced them very simply, very easily. 1 Granny Smith. I love the Granny Smith because they really hold their form, their shape when they're cooked. I also have a mango. Mango gives a little bit of sweetness, and I'll show you what I do with the pit and the skins in a little bit. And I have a pear. Peeled that, took out the seeds, sliced that, and that's all in here. So to this I'm going to add a couple of other things. And what I'm going to do with it is I put about a tablespoon of butter in this saute pan, and I'm going to actually saute all of these. I'm also going to add, sometimes I'll add orange juice, some fresh squeezed orange juice. I'll put that in, or I may use a little bit of, I use Simply Orange, whatever kind of orange juice you use, but a good orange juice made from oranges as opposed to the concentrate. And but this time I'm actually going to use, instead of cutting up the pineapple, I'm using a can of pineapple in 100% pineapple juice. So I'm going to be using that as my liquid. And actually I try to put that liquid in before any of the apples start to turn. But I just cut them up, so this is going to be pretty simple. So I'm going to put this in here, get this butter melting just a little bit. Let's get a little thing here. There's one more thing I'm going to add, but I'm going to put these in first. So there's that. That butter will just soften, just give it a little bit of flavor. And I'm not going to add anything to that in terms of no salt or anything like that. And I am going to add this, but I'm going to add that in a minute. The other ingredient that I'm going to add is some dried apricots. So I have some of these right here, and I'll be putting those in there. If you look at the recipe, you can put dried apricots, dried peaches, dried pears. You could put some dried cranberries. I will caution you, if you use cranberries, put them in at the very end. Cranberries will flash burn very quickly, so don't put them in until everything is pretty well cooked. Then you can add them, so that way you can remove it rather quickly. If you put the cranberries in at this stage of the game, they'll turn black on you. So I wouldn't do that. You could probably even do fresh cranberries if you wanted to do that. But I just want to get this softened up just a little. So the butter's melted, and I don't know that I'm going to use all of it. Yeah, actually I think I am. So it's not that much. There we go. So there's the pineapple in there. And I really am using that because I want that juice. Because I want that to help cook these fruits just a little. I don't want to cook them down too much because we're going to cook them within the pork itself. but I want them to get a little soft. I don't want them to be all hard and crunchy. So now I'm going to take some of these and put these in here. I've done this too with dried mixed fruits, with plums, with dry, plums, the dried plums or prunes. And I'm going to reserve some of these. There we go. I'm just putting that in because I'm going to do a glaze once this is all done with some preserves. And we're going to add some of these apricots to that. So I'm going to just leave that to the side. And we'll, so this is ready to go. Cooking that up. We're going to put it in here, stuff it, roll it up. And then we're going to put a rub over the top, put it in and let it cook. And then once that's done, I'll show you how to make the glaze. And you'll have the most beautiful table centerpiece as your Thanksgiving, well, not Thanksgiving really, because we're always doing turkey on Thanksgiving, right? But Christmas, a holiday, a special event, or just a date night. It really makes a really nice meal. So anyway, we'll be back with the fruit stuffed pork. So now we're going to get ready to stuff our pork, okay? And this one is going to be, I think you've noticed, as we've been preparing this, I have had a double-sized loin here. I cut it in half because my roaster is small and it's not going to fit that really big one. If I had a really big pan, I could put the whole roast in there, no problem. But I'm being creative, and I also I'm going to freeze half of this because I don't need to make the whole thing. And so I thought I'd take the opportunity to show you two different versions of making this. So we're going to do the fruit stuffed pork, but then I'm also going to show you another version of making this stuffed pork. So we'll get to that in a minute. So let's finish now with the fruit stuffed pork. So we've got our pork ready to go, and now we have our stuffing. I don't want to put my messy, dirty, pork-ridden hands in that stuffing because if I have too much stuffing and I have it left over, I may want to use it as a side dish. So I don't want to put my hands with raw pork in that fruit. So I'm going to use a spatula, something to get the fruit out. So if you remember from our recipe as we went a little earlier, what is in here is a couple of sliced apples. I used a couple of Cortland apples and a Granny Smith apple. There's a mango that's sliced up. I have some dried apricot, and I have a sliced pear, and then I have some chunks of pineapple. And you can put all kinds of things. If you wanted to just do apples, you could just put apples. You could do apples and pears. You could make any combination that you want. I happen to like a mixture of different fruits. I like it when it's really colorful, so sometimes I will put some prunes or some other kinds of fruits in there that give some additional definition, like cranberries. I'm keeping it pretty simple today. I'm not doing all that stuff. That's the beauty of cooking in the kitchen. Do what you like, make what you like, and cook what you like, and you can adapt things. The other thing is you don't want to go broke either. I know going to the market to get some of these, usually I put peaches and a lot of other stuff in here. First of all, they didn't have any because it's just really not in season in the area that I live in. And, it adds up. And so I decided to go a little bare this time instead of doing, a stuffing of plenty. So if you have apples on hand, just use apples. Use pears, use whatever it is that you want. It doesn't have to cost a lot to make a really delicious meal. Sometimes just a little creativity, just a little bit of time, and you can whip up some really awesome things. So anyway, I'm going to put this in here. I don't want to overstuff. And I want to get some of these luscious, look at those dried apricots. Cooking them down in this little saute really brought out the plumpness in them. So I think that that's going to be more than enough, actually. So I don't want to put any more in there. Now, I'm going to tell you that there are times when I've done this where after I put the herbs down on the pork, I've lined this with pancetta or prosciutto. Sometimes I've put some cheese. You can do all kinds of things. I'm not crazy about the cheese with the fruit, so but I've done it to try it. But the pancetta or the addition of some prosciutto is lovely. I'm not doing that this time. This time I'm just making it very simple, and I'm just doing the fruit with the herbs. And I'm just going to flatten that out just a little bit. We're going to roll this puppy up. And I don't want to keep it too close to the edges because it's going to move to the edges anyway. Now, I have got some skewers that I'm soaking in water. I have some small ones too because one of them I'm going to freeze, so I don't want the skewers to be as long as I have in this one. So I just got a few of them. Now, anything I put my hands on with this is either going to get used or it's going to get tossed because with the pork, it's not going back. So there we go. So you know how we kind of flattened it all out? Well, we're putting it back together now, little by little. And you got to be a little delicate with it, but it really is kind of easy. Just push it all together and you're bringing it all back in. There we go. Lifting it up a little because I want to get that nice. Now, I've stuffed it a bit. And I'm probably going to have to like stick some of that back in there. But before I do that, I need to at least get this skewered together. And I like these long ones. So I'm going to, this one's actually kind of thin. So I want to dispense with that. I do them at an angle. So see, I kind of did that way. Kind of almost like I crisscross them. And then I'll do that one this way. This makes it so easy. I used to wrap it with string, and it took so much more time, and it was a little more involved. And this way, it really is so easy, and then it's so easy coming out. So there we go. So it's almost like you're sewing. You're just cross-stitching here. One to the other. There we go. On there. And I'm probably going to come down to the end, and then I'll go back. Just to get this end all nice and tight. And I want that meat right inside there. Pull this up. Oh, look at that. This is going to be so incredibly delicious. It smells wonderful. So I really want to get this in here now. Whoops, come on. There we go. And get that side together. All that sinewy membrane doesn't help much. So I'm going to need another one. Ooh, one right up top. Got it. Without messing up the rest of those in there. Whoops. Alrighty. This looks, whoops, I kind of went that down a little too far. There we go. And then I want to cross that over with this. And bring that right up. Now that is looking great. Look at that. Our pork, our fruit stuffed pork, is pretty much ready to go. Look at that. There she is. She looks mighty pretty to me. But now, I want a little seasonings on the outside, and I want to put some more of those herbs on there. So I'm going to wash my hands again. So I'm going to add a little seasonings now to the outside of the pork. Just a little Himalayan sea salt. So we got that. A little bit of coarsely ground black pepper. Pepper and pork go well together, actually. And then I have this little mixture, the same thing that we put on the inside. I made up another batch, and I'm going to save this because I'm going to be putting it on the other one. So I don't want to use it all here. But there we go. I think that's going to be perfect. It's got a little bit of olive oil, and actually I could put a little olive oil on the outside of this, which is what I often do before I even season it with the salt and pepper. But there is olive oil in this, and I'm trying to be a little more careful with the amount of healthy fats that I use. So I don't really feel that it's necessary to add anything else. And now, look at that. It's beautiful, isn't it? Doesn't it look great? So that essentially is the fruit stuffed pork. because this one I am going to cook. Now, I don't want to put it down on there because the pork juices have been on. I still have that saran wrap on my counter. So I'm going to put it over here, and I'm going to probably work a little from here, but I'll show you what I've got in this bowl. Usually when I make a roast, I line the bottom of the pan with some celery, some onion, a little carrot, maybe some shallots, or some various things. In this case, when I do the pork, I'm doing the same thing. So I just chopped up a little bit of a carrot, some celery. I'm using here a red onion. I also have, and I'm not tying them together in a little bouquet, but I've got some loose herbs just to infuse that flavor, because I'm going to put some liquid in the bottom here, and I really want, and I'm going to tent it, I'm going to cover it for the initial beginning of cooking it. So I want the aroma to not just be making the house smell fabulous. I want it to kind of infuse the pork. And then I also I have like the pit from my mango. If I was using, and I'm going to, some orange juice, I would take the rinds of the orange juice and kind of line the bottom of the pan and put that right on top of it. I have this wonderful little rack that I'm using. So I'm not worried about it as much as, about doing that. So I'm really just going to put this on top of the rack. And I'm going to be putting my pork right on top of this. There. And let's just lift this and bring this over here. Then I'll bring it over to you so you can see it. Woo! Oh my, that looks fabulous. Gotta rinse the hands again before I pick up those handles. So here is, I'm hoping that you can see this. Here is our fruit stuffed pork, and it's all ready to go. Save one more thing. I'm going to put a little bit of liquid in the bottom of that pan. I'm going to put probably a cup of water. I'm going to put some orange juice. I have some of the reserved liquid from when I cooked these. You can see there's still some more liquid that the fruits make in the bottom here. And I'm going to put this, actually I'll just do it right now while you're right here. I'm going to put it right there. Oh, look at that, all that good juice. I'm going to add some water to that, rinse that out, put that in there. I could also put in some chicken stock if I wanted to, but I'm going to keep it pretty simple. Add a little bit of water, a touch of orange juice, put that in there. I'm going to put it into the oven. Probably, I'm going to put it on high actually at about 400 for about 20 minutes. I'm going to cover it so that it's nice and sealed and tented. And then after that 20 minutes, I'm going to turn it down to 350 and let it cook. So I will come back and I will show you the finished product when it's all done cooking, and then I'll show you the glaze that we put on top of it, and then we will slice into it and you'll get to see the inside of that great looking fruit stuffed pork. So we have our fruit stuffed pork in the oven cooking, and this one is actually going to be going into the freezer. So I have another way to prepare the pork if you don't want to use the fruit. And so, as you know, we've filleted it. We've done a nice little rub on the inside, and then we have some vegetables to put in it. Now, you could get some pancetta or some prosciutto. You could even put some cheese in here if you wanted to. You could put some feta cheese if you wanted, and keep the the theme with the spinach and the almost like a spinach pie on the inside of the pork. But I'm not going to be doing that. I'm just going to actually be using the spinach. I'm going to wash my hands because I've been touching that pork, and I want to grab a spoon over here. I'm going to use this little mixture that I made. And what's in here? Very simple. I just diced up an onion and a red bell pepper, a little bit of garlic, sauteed that. I have the organic baby spinach, and I actually just gave it a little chop, put it in there, and sauteed that together. Normally I would add a lot of salt and pepper to this and some fresh thyme to give it a really nice flavor. I already have enough thyme in this herb mixture, so I don't need to do any of that. A little salt and pepper was fine, but that's really all that I did with this. And I want to try to stay away from getting any of the moisture in this. Now, you could either use fresh spinach. I used fresh spinach to do this filling. Oftentimes, I'll use frozen spinach, the frozen chopped spinach, and then I'll saute that with a touch of olive oil, just the tiniest amount of butter, just because it gives it that little creaminess. I use sea salt now and everything, so Himalayan sea salt, a little bit of coarsely ground pepper, the red bell pepper, the onion, and the garlic. And it just makes such a fabulous side dish, actually. And then you can do this to stuff the pork, and it's just wonderful. So what I'm going to be doing with this actually is I'm going to make this, I'm going to wrap it up, and I'm going to freeze it because I have the fruit stuffed pork cooking, and that's the one that we're going to have. So this one is going to be for another time because I got that big pork loin. Now you could have taken this other half, kept it whole, put it in the freezer for another time to use it just as a pork loin, season it up and cook it like that. You could slice it to make chops. You could use it to make a stew. I mean, there's so many different things you can do with the pork loin. But I happen to like making a couple of roasts, putting them in the freezer so that I have them. And just makes things very easy, very simple. So now I'm just putting it all back together. I may have to like stuff and stuff again. Now this one, I'm going to use smaller skewers to hold it together because I'm going to freeze it. So I don't want those big skewers sticking out. Could always cut them once you put them in. But these work well too. And these are just small little skewers. And I could have used them in the other one. But when I cook, I like the bigger skewers because I can see them. Now, when I touch them, like those are all not whatever doesn't get used is not going back. It's going to have to get tossed unless I'm making something else where I'm going to use skewers with pork. Because once my hands have touched it, it's contaminated. So we don't want to use them again. So you want to be careful about that stuff. I'm very careful with pork in the kitchen. Always have been very cognizant of contamination, and I'm one of those people, I don't know, you know, when I cook, I like to clean up as I go along because I hate having that mess at the end that you have to deal with. So I don't do well with a really messy kitchen. And boy, it would be awesome to have like a sous chef who just follow behind me and take care of it all. But actually, I don't mind doing it because I love to cook and that's part of it. So it's all good, right? But this is really such a great dish. Now, these smaller skewers present a little bit more of a challenge than the longer ones. The other ones, just put them in and you're done. I may have to do like a couple of layers with this to get this sealed and then kind of finalize it with an additional one as we go through. But that's okay. Yeah, because that piece is small and very sinewy. There we go. It's coming through. You got to be careful of these things too. They're very sharp. You don't want to get poked with them. And ooh, oh my goodness, this looks like it's leaking. Gonna have to wash this floor really well. All right, there's that. Looks like I'm going to be using most of these, so not so worried about it. Here we go. Let me just put, oh, that one's kind of broken on that end, so I'm just going to take one here and put it straight through. And I'm going to do the same thing at this end. Actually, where could we use that? We could actually use that. No. You can probably use it over at this end too. All right. There we go. Our pork is all nicely stuffed. Now, I let the stuffing cool down a little bit. Obviously, I don't want to put a warm mixture into a cool pork. So I'm going to come back. I'm going to clean this up. I'm going to wrap it so that I can get it into the fridge or into the freezer. And then I'm going to show you how I make the porchetta, which is really, it's one of our family favorites. And so we'll come back and I'll show you that, and we'll see you in a minute. So this is the roast pork that has the spinach and pepper stuffing in it. And what I want to do is I turned it over, I put it on another piece of paper here, and I want to put this rub on the top before I wrap it to put it in the freezer. Could add a little bit of salt and pepper to this as well. But we can season that up when it comes out of the freezer and puts it in. But doesn't that look pretty? So I'm going to wrap this up. Let's see, let's do this. Before I cut out, I want to just show you, remember we started off working with the pork on this counter, and I had layered some saran wrap. I actually ended up putting a few more layers over it as I was making the different types of pork and doing doing the fillings. And so now this is so easy. Look at this cleanup. I mean, obviously this all has to be sanitized and washed down, but it is so much easier than having had all that stuff on my counter or on a cutting board or a working surface. For me, it's just a helpful, easy tip. I love it. It's especially when I'm working with chicken or pork because I just find that I need that little extra degree of keeping things as sanitary as I can. So that's just a little tip for you. Back. So we have a fruit stuffed pork loin in the oven, and that's cooking. And we have made another stuffed pork loin, but this one is stuffed with a spinach, onion, and red bell pepper stuffing. And this one is not a pork loin, but a pork butt. And it has the fat still on it. The fat strap is still there. And this has been seasoned rather heavily with Himalayan sea salt, coarse ground black pepper, and garlic powder. So that's been seasoned. They've all been wrapped really, really well. And so now what I'm going to do is actually wrap them in some foil. I could wrap them in some of that freezer paper if I wanted to. I will put the date and what they are, and then I'm going to put them in the freezer. I can bring them out any other time. If we have, Sunday dinner, having, people over, whatever, trying to figure out something to make for a meal, and they come out of the freezer, go in the oven, and they're simple and they're done. So I hope that, this little day of cooking with some pork has been helpful to give you some ideas for holiday cooking, for just, every day for a Sunday dinner. But we'll be back later with the wrap up of the fruit stuffed pork. So we've made a couple of different dishes with pork. We have the fruit stuffed pork loin that's cooking in the oven. We have a pork loin that is stuffed with spinach, red bell pepper, some onion and garlic, as well as that little herb mixture that we made. And then we have an Italian family favorite of the Ulysses family, and that is porchetta. And the porchetta is really just heavily seasoned with, this one is heavily seasoned with some Himalayan sea salt, some coarse ground black pepper, and garlic powder. And these are all wrapped and ready to go. I'm going to actually be adding another layer of wrapping to them. I'll label them and date them, and they're going to go into the freezer so they can come out whenever we want to make a meal. The fruit stuffed pork will come out, and when it does, I'll come back and I'll have a clip for that full recipe, start to finish. And so we'll show you how we wrap up that with a glaze that goes over that. But what I wanted to do is just take a minute to talk about, the holidays and about, cooking in general. I love to cook, and so this comes natural and very easy to me. I know it doesn't to a lot of people, and I guess if there's any way that I can show you some simple and easy tips that might, take some of the the worry out of making something, then I hope that, you know, some of my videos are helpful to you for that. A couple of the tips that I want to leave you with regarding this little pork series that we're doing today. One is in using that saran wrap on the counter. If you've got large things that you're working with, putting that saran wrap down is an awesome way to keep your surfaces clean and free from all the juices and all of the stuff, especially when you're working with items like poultry and with pork, with meats in general. So that is one of my number one tips. The other tip that I have for you is, you know, enjoy it. Whatever it is, whatever you're making, you know, the thing about the holidays or Sunday dinner or just gather a friend Thanksgiving and gathering with people and friends, family, whoever it is that's around the table. It's really the people that are around the table. The food is awesome because it's there. We're together and we're sharing breaking bread, having a meal together. And so it's always wonderful to have food and to have something that is good, that is enjoyed by everyone. But don't stress out over it. And don't make things more complicated than they need to be. If you want to make that fruit stuffed pork, you don't have to get all those ingredients. You can simply stuff it with apples. You can do it with the combination of things that you like or things that are on hand so that it doesn't break the bank or your budget either. So there's always ways to modify things. If you have questions, reach out. Let me know. I'm happy to do what I can to try to help and direct or give you some suggestions, some ideas. Because I know for me, just having family around the table is what really matters. That's what my parents gave us. And that's what they instilled in, you know, everyone was welcome. And it was just wonderful just to be together. And that's the reason I wrote, you know, Made with Love, a tribute to my parents, was to honor them, to honor Maria and Dominic, and to pay tribute to their lives and the traditions that they gave us, which I'm so grateful for, because now we get to pass those on to the next generations of our family, and I get to share them with you, and hopefully inspire you to start your own traditions, or to start new traditions, or to take some of these and make them your own. So anyway, we'll be back with the wrap up on the fruit stuffed pork, and we'll talk to you later. To show you how this pork is coming along. Look at that. It's absolutely beautiful. We have a lot of liquid in the bottom of the pan, so and we have those herbs and the mango bone the mango pit and the other stuff in here, just infusing this with incredible flavors and a fragrance that is just, I don't know if you can see the steam coming up here. It's absolutely wonderful. So I'm now actually going to take these off and leave them off so this can start to brown a little. I'll put a meat thermometer in here in a little bit to see where we are in terms of temperature wise and how close this is to being done. It's looking to me like it's close, because, you know, when you fillet the loin, it makes it thin, so it cooks a little quicker. Of course, when you stuff it, you've got stuff on the inside, but the stuffing is all fruit, so it's nothing that needs to be cooked any additional time. So I'm going to put this back in the oven, let it kind of brown and crust up again. I'll be back. We're going to make some of that wonderful glaze that goes over the top, and then we put that back in the oven and let that kind of bubble up a little, and then we'll slice into it so you can see what this fruit stuffed pork loin looks like. So here we have our glaze that we're going to put on top of our fruit stuffed pork loin. And all it is, really, it's very simple. And you can use any combination of preserves that you like. Sometimes I've used orange marmalade and maybe some cherry preserves, or you know, even some figs sometimes, which especially if you're putting figs in the inside the stuffing of the, if you stuff them inside of the pork loin. But what I'm doing today is really very simple. This is probably 2 tablespoons of plum preserves, and maybe 3 or 2.5, almost 3 tablespoons of apricot preserves. And then just some of those reserved apricots, the dried apricots, just a handful of them, and you heat it up. Just heat it up, very simple. Make it a little looser if you want, add a little bit of juice. This is all set and ready to go. It's all heated up, it's perfect. I'm gonna leave it on the stove. I just checked the temperature of my pork. It's not ready yet. I want it closer to being done before I take it out. And then I'm going to brush this over the top, put it back in. And plus I want it a little brown before I take it out and before I put the glaze on it. And then I'll crank the heat up a little just to kind of caramelize it a little bit because I want to get some nice color on that pork. So this is all ready to go. I'm going to set it aside, let it sit there, let my pork finish. As soon as it's done, I'll take it out. We'll brush it. I'll show you how I do that, which is really very simple. Put that on there, put it back in the oven, come back out, and then we'll have dinner. So it's time for us now to put this nice glaze over our pork. The pork is at an internal temperature of 140. It really should be at 160. And it's got a nice little bit of browning starting here. And so we're going to add some of this and put it back in and cook it up to temp. So, look at that. Let's see if we can give it a nice little coat here. Get this all over this. It just makes it look so pretty. And if you use a combination of dried fruits on the top, it's even prettier. It looks even nicer. And here we go. So this is a mixture of plum preserves and apricot preserves, and then dried apricots. So that's all this is. And I'm just trying to get all of it in here. There we go. Here we go. And there we go. Now we're gonna take that. I think that's gonna work just perfectly. I'm gonna take the temperature again one more time just to make sure. We're going to put this back in the oven. You know, the juices came out clear, which is really good, but I do have to kind of trust the thermometer. All right, and we're going up to close to, let's see, I'm not sure. It's past the 140. All right, it needs a little more. So we're going to put this back in the oven. And then we will be back and we'll see what this thing looks like on the inside. So the roast is out of the oven, and I believe it is at an internal temperature of 160. And we're just going to confirm that. Oh yeah, it's racing right up there. So this is actually perfect. Just want to make sure it hits. And it's glaring and it's almost there. And it's on the mark. So our roast is ready. We're going to let it sit a bit before we carve into it because we don't want all those juices to come rushing out. So so we know that it's where it should be. It's awesome, actually. It's looking absolutely wonderful. I don't know if you can see this. It's kind of sitting on that little bed of the vegetables and the fruit and the peels and the pits and the things that I put underneath it. So that's sitting on top of the rack, and then this is on the loin is on top of that on this rack. We're going to be serving this tonight. Actually, it's date night, and so my husband and I are going to have a little lovely fruit stuffed pork loin, and we're going to serve that with some Malvesa. I've already been into it. It's absolutely delicious. This is Martin Ulysses. It is Daddy's wine, actually. My niece Chrissy started this company, and it's the wine is fabulous. Of course it's in the family, right? I can't say any more about it because it is so awesome. And I tend to go more for the reds than I do the white. But every so often I like a white, and we have a Trebbiano and this Malvesa, and I love the Malvesa. And so tonight I was kind of in the mood to have that with the pork. So I'm going to top this off just a little. I have more wine glasses in the dining room, so I'll just have that for the kitchen, and then we'll have more when we go to sit and have dinner. But as you can see, I put the glaze on this, and it's kind of caramelized a little, and it's all ooey gooey and just yummy. And I'm actually going to move this. I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it onto the platter to kind of let it sit, and I'm going to take out the skewer. So I'm going to show you how I do that, but I'm going to move my glass of wine out of the way because I don't want to knock over my bottle. It's delicious. So let's do this. And you never know how it's going to come out of the pan, right? So I get all these little trusty tools just in case I need them. I think I'm going to try with these two. Woo! Lifting that right up. I think that's going to work perfectly. Look at that. Oh my goodness. That is beauteous. Doesn't that look awesome? I love this all-clad pan too. This roasting pan. This is actually the first time I've used it. So excited. A friend of mine got a really good deal on it, and so picked it up for us. We asked her to get one for us, and oh, I'm so glad that we did because it's absolutely beautiful. And I've been waiting for a special occasion to use it, and so this is it. So now, with these little skewers, you can actually, I'm not going to be as delicate. I'm going to just pull these out. And as you can see, really, that's just what I'm doing. And that's why it's good if you kind of try to put them all in the same way when you're crisscrossing and threading it. Just makes it a little easier coming out. Now, isn't this a lot easier than if we had string binding this, having to go all the way around? I love these little skewers, so that's my other little tip. Okay, so that is all set. That's out. Now, we're going to wait. Let me get these out of the way. Let me put these in the trash. Wash my hands. And we'll come back in a minute, and I'm going to slice this up, and you're going to be able to take a look at the inside. I don't know if you can see that. You see? Look at it from all ends. It's a nice looking roast. Linda's fruit stuffed pork loin. Really easy to make, as you've seen. It really isn't all that labor intensive, and you can adapt it to anything that you like. So we'll be back. We'll cut into this baby, and we'll take a look and see what it looks like. We're going to cut into this now, and we're going to see how this looks. I've been dying to show you how this looks from the inside. This is a much thicker piece than I would normally cut, but I just wanted to break into it so I could kind of just give you an idea. Turn that around there so you could see. Look at that. Does that look lovely? So I'm going to slice a couple of pieces here. I'll actually slice one off the inside. Right here. Oh my goodness, that looks fabulous. I really wish there was like smell TV so you could smell how good this smells, because it really does. And I just want to pick that up. I think there's still a piece kind of caught to that. Let's see. There we go. Let's bring that out. Oh my. Put that over here. You can see that. Pork is cooked perfectly. It really does look nice and juicy and tender. And the fruit is in there, and it pretty much stays together. We have some additional fruit that didn't fit in here because I didn't make the whole loin with fruit. If you recall, I did two separate versions of it, one with the spinach and one with the fruit. So we have some of that fruit to go with this, and a little asparagus, and some nice wine, and So that is going to be our stuffed pork loin. It's a great meal to make around the holidays or anytime really, Sunday dinner, whenever. It's really easy. It's delicious, and I hope that you enjoyed this. Bon appetit. So, this is our date night, and we're letting you in just for a couple of minutes. So we're having our wonderful fruit stuffed pork loin with a little bit of asparagus, some of the actual fruit that's on the inside that's been heated up a little bit, and we're staying away from the starch tonight because we're having a glass of wine. So bon appetit. Oh my goodness, this is so good. And this is the Malvesa, Martin Ulysses. We love it. We're going to be having that with our pork. And I think we're going to have dinner now, so we're going to say goodbye. And, honey, do you want to turn that off? You want to do the honors? Bye, guys. Have a good night.